Welcome back. We're talking to Larry Klayman of freedomwatchusa.org. And Mr. Klayman was part of the Bundy defense team. He is now representing two men who were very quickly dismissed. They had absolutely no evidence, although they'd held them for nearly 2 years in jail. They held everybody there for 2 years or longer before they got a trial. Once these guys got a trial, it's obvious that they had no charges, so they are suing to try to expose the corruption of the Department of Justice, as well as to get compensation that they truly deserve there. We're talking to him about what happened there, about the fact that this corrupt judge who presided over the trial, Gloria Navarro, was an acolyte of Harry Reid there in that area. But I wanted to get some information about the other people who are still there. Anything else you want to tell us, Larry, about your clients and this particular case? But also there's another couple of individuals who were found guilty as in the earlier trials because that information was skewed, because they withheld information about what the FBI and the BLM were doing that would have shown that they were the aggressors, withheld information about Dan Love, who had been violating laws and so forth. Withheld a lot of information like that, really rigged the process. They got a conviction against a couple of individuals. The same information, the same tactics, the same witnesses and everything that were used being used against the Bundys, where you were there as part of that defense team, were used to convict these other individuals who are now still in jail. And the whole thing got blown out of the water by the BLM whistleblower, but those two individuals are still in jail. What do you know about that?
And there's also somebody who pled out, in fact, more than one. One of them is Pete Santilli, a talk show host. They were trying to intimidate conservative talk show hosts right before elections that were coming up and telling them they better be quiet or they would go to prison. These people are ruthless. And it's interesting that Lavelle and Stewart were acquitted without even providing any closing argument by their lawyers. That's how clear it was that they were innocent. And these others that are in prison right now, they're still rotting in prison, and they should be let go. And it's totally inappropriate that these people are there. There's still actually some people in prison in addition to those who are out now who were acquitted or convicted of other crimes. So,
you know, Larry, as I said, I was there. I covered it in the days leading up to the standoff. We were there that morning. Most of the mainstream media went home because they were told by Harry Reid that they were going to give in. They were going to let the Bundys be able to graze their cattle, even though they had confiscated the cattle. They were going to say, okay, well, we've got your cattle, but now you can use the land to graze on it and everything. So the mainstream media went home. We stayed there, and so we were there when all of that happened. But it was absolutely amazing to see these people stand up, and it was nothing other than a protest. It was a peaceful protest. I mean, Antifa should be that peaceful. They did have sidearms on, but they, it wasn't like there weren't any threats. There weren't any weapons aimed at the people walking across that wash. It was just a peaceful protest. I can't imagine that these guys are being sent to jail for years for what I witnessed there.
No, absolutely. I mean, it really is remarkable. This is the first time in American history on a major scale that the American people stood up to the federal government, the tyrannical federal government in this instance, using their Second Amendment right to bear arms, their First Amendment right to protest, and won. They fought the law. Of course, this isn't the law. These were outlaws, and they won. And what's at issue here, David? What's the bottom line here is that this land belongs to the people of Nevada. Cliven Bundy grazes on that land through grazing and water rights. And Harry Reid was reportedly, with his son Rory downtown, who's a lawyer, was trying to take that land away from the Bundys and sell it to Chinese environmental interests. Obviously, they were going to get kickbacks or something like that. This is corrupt. And it's something that you could do a Hollywood movie about because, frankly, no one would believe it unless you saw it actually happen on the big screen. And this is why we're pursuing justice, because you can't let this kind of thing go on. And we have an attorney general, as we know, who's absolutely worthless. He just buries his head in the sand. So we have to take action.
You know, we see the same type of thing happening with John McCain in Arizona. That area there, the Tonto Reserve, an area that was a historical and sacred site to the Apaches. It was used for recreational purposes and so forth. That's now been turned over to a foreign corporation for copper mining. It's going to create this massive hole there, destroying all of those interests, historical, recreational, religious, and everything, for all these different groups. And you see these senators working with these massive multinational corporations as if this was their private, fiefdom, and leveraging that information. And we see it happening both Republican and Democrat. But certainly Harry Reid was one of the worst. They had so many different issues there. They wanted to get them off the land. They had property rights, And people need to understand these property rights that they had, the grazing and the water rights and so forth, are every bit as important as the rights that you have to your home in the suburbs. And I've seen this happening already in Washington State, where they're coming out, expanding a national park and taking away people's suburban homes because they've established this principle that they can steal anything from you that they wish.
That's right. And, the Bundys had grazed on that land for 150 years. Cliven's great-grandfather, his name was Levitt, started it. And that's the way you acquire the ability to ranch, is through grazing rights. Of course, he owns the property in and around his ranch. That was violated as well. And as I pointed out, cattle were killed, buried in a secret mass grave, notwithstanding the assaults on the Bundy family and on others. So this is the worst example of government tyranny in modern history. It's what King George III was doing in the days leading up to the revolution in 1776. And the Bundys and the people in and around the Bundys are a lot like the colonialists that said, no, we're not going to take it anymore. We're going to push back. And they did it legally and peacefully. Thank God it wasn't another Ruby Ridge and another Waco, because it could have.
That's why we went out there. We were afraid that it was going to happen. And the pushback that I would see at the time, and I still see it even whenever I tweet this stuff out, I still see people on the left saying, oh, those millionaire welfare ranchers and everything. And you and I both know the Bundys are not a wealthy family. We know how hard they work, and we know that when they take away a $6,000 bull, that is incredible blow to that family. They're not welfare ranchers. They were people who were taking a principled stand for private property rights and for the Constitution.
Not only that, but hundreds of ranchers throughout the West. You could call this whole event How the West Was Won Again. Hundreds of ranches were driven out of business by the environmental policies of the Bureau of Land Management, that literally the way they managed the land was that they could actually dictate what bush the cattle could eat at. And this is very arid land, 400,000 acres in and around Lake Mead. So Cliven wasn't going to pay grazing fees to go out of business. And in fact, he didn't owe the grazing fees because the government does not own that land. It's the state of Nevada that owns the land. I might add, the federal government does not own that land. And we have a case to have that declared to be true.
But the same liberals are out there with their hate and their envy for this so-called, what they imagine in their own minds, a millionaire rancher. They don't have a problem with the trillionaire executives censoring us off of the internet. That's the amazing thing. They can just go the other direction. But let's talk before we run out of time, because we got just a little bit of time left. Your comments on the fact that finally Peter Strzok has been fired by the FBI. It took long enough, didn't it?
I thought he already had been fired, frankly. I mean, that's what they were pushing, a few months ago. I mean, this is unbelievable. Firing's not enough, David. He has to be indicted. He should be tried. Right. He should put in the slammer for the rest of his life.
And the amazing thing is that Jeff Sessions said in an interview before Strzok went to Congress and sneered at everybody, he said he doesn't have security clearance anymore. And when he was testifying in Congress, he sneered at everybody and said, yeah, I have secret clearance and above secret clearance. And so, he continued on and on with his clearance and so forth. This happened about an hour ago. It's now been announced that the FBI has fired Peter Strzok finally. That's absolutely amazing that he persisted this long and that there was so little done in the Justice Department until now.
Well, we have citizens' grand juries. I've talked about that with Alex, with Owen, with my friend Joel Gilbert, who's on your shows. And we're seeking to get justice because it's not enough to fire Strzok. We need to hold the people accountable. Obama himself, the intelligence chiefs, Fusion GPS, Bruce Orr, Nellie Orr, they all need to be held accountable. This Justice Department won't do it. So Strzok, as bad as he is, he becomes the fall guy to take the pressure off the rest of the criminals over there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is, it's the lower level criminal. And so, he is a fall guy, but at least he's still not there able to do damage. I mean, that is one good aspect of this. There has to be a little bit of accountability. Maybe that is all we'll ever get, but I hope that you do get a citizen grand jury involved, because there needs to be a house cleaning there. A lot of corruption. Thank you for joining us, Larry Klayman, and you can find him at freedomwatchusa.org. Out there fighting the good fight, trying to get justice in a corrupt Department of Justice system.